Hello, everybody. I am Kai, and today I'm very glad to be right here and to present to you a talk about performing identity. And then it's titled "We Perform Ourselves Before We Become Ourselves." Okay, let's. So you know what? The moment I walked into the classroom as an English teacher, and then standing in front of all of my students at Nankyu High School for the Gifted. They're so talented, good at English, sharp mindset. And you know what? They are so good at spotting out grammatical errors. Who I was back then, I was 24 years old, fresh out of my master's degree in the UK. I just finished it. And I was figuring out where I stood between performing authority or actually being it. So, in this presentation today, I'm not talking about how to fit in a new environment, but I'm going to share with you how we can use a tool that everybody has, language, the power of language to actually shape and change reality. So let me introduce to you the first theory that is closely related to my source today. It is called speech act theory, devised by Austin, and then his idea is roughly like this. So this is not exactly what Austin says, but I, translate it into something that is easily to understand. Okay. So language isn't just about conveying facts; it's about performing actions. Austin said some phrases or language that we use are called utterances, and they hold strong power to actually change the reality that we have. So, for example, let me give you some over here. Okay, so imagine if someone says, I sentence you. Okay, what happened after that, guys? Yeah, someone is put in jail. And then what about, I now pronounce you husband and wife? Boom, two random people become legally married. So, like I said before, language is very powerful, right? It can actually change the reality that we live in. So it applies in everyday life too. Take a look at these two examples. When you say, I'm not good at public speaking, you put yourself in a frame by saying that, oh, I'm so limited, I can't do public speaking at all. Or when you say, I need to be good at English, you put yourself out there. So now, oh, this is me when I was 11. Growing up, um, I've been mocked. Not by the way how I talked. I mean, not about what I talked, but about the way how I talked, the way how I put myself all together. So they say something like this. I still remember. Stop showing off. Why are you trying so hard? You know what? Because I was that kid raising my hand like Hermione Granger in Harry Potter. So So gradually, I learned how to put myself together. I start to sharpen all the edges, change myself, change the way how I walked. And gradually, I become the version that everybody expected me to. Now they start giving me more compliments, but they have no idea what I had given up to get there. So there comes Judith Butler, a philosopher that I really admire, and she says something like this: identity isn't something we discover, it's something we perform. And by saying so, and let me give you an example to illustrate this because philosopher always say something very vague, right? So, don't cry, be a man. These phrases are those that a little boy often listens to all of the time. Oh, a boy needs to like this. Men should like Superman or stuff like that. And gradually, this boy grows, an identity, turns all that speech acts into reality. So that got me thinking. Repeated actions, words, phrases, gestures can also form the way how we are. So, and I am doing the same thing. I've been performing my identity as an English teacher, as a good English teacher, as a good kid, as a good son, all the time. So, I mean, it's not bad, right? But that shows how identity works. We, as human beings, are all performing identities. That reminds us of the theme for our talk today, TEDx, 我他们让 Q. 35mm film is what I think of identity. Okay? So identity is that film strip, a moving archive, not a single selfie. So like each assurances or each moment can be a single frame. Some can be overexposed. Some are not clear. Some even, burnt. But they all come together and shape who you're becoming. So there comes Carl Rogers, another the big name, and then he said, a good life is a process, not a state of being. It's a direction, not a destination. And that got me thinking, oh, identity isn't fixed. We're not fixed in one mold, and then since it's not a destination, we still have time to change here and there. So this is the way how I translate it into my identity wasn't something I had to get it right. It was something I had to grow into. So, the first day when I taught at Nankiu, of course, my students were very brilliant. I was petrified, so that I kept rehearsing this one identity, the confident teacher, the one who knows it all. And then gradually, I figured out. Me, myself, can actually do something even further. There comes a student, and then he just approached me and told me, this is the first time I felt like my accent was valid. This is the first time being queer is acceptable in my classroom. I was stunned. I was happy because, for a moment, language can actually, change the way how people thought of who you are as well. I mean, I can give my students permissions to perform differently. So, as I said before, language is very powerful, right? Because it can change reality. It can shift how reality works and, the environment that we live in, you name it. But then, Michel Foucault actually introduced a new concept. He said language is never perfect, and it's shaped by power and can be reshaped by those who see it. By saying language is never perfect, he means that language can be twisted, can be bended, can be repurposed to mean something else, to change, to shape the reality. If it doesn't reflect the reality that we are living in now, if it's not successfully does its job, then I think we have all the right to change. And words or utterances that we keep hearing every day from social media, from TikTok videos, from influencers saying that you gotta be like this, you gotta be like that all the time. And then somehow, subconsciously or consciously, it changes the way how you view the reality without knowing it. And then they are all formed in language, in the way of language use. Teaching language, I always want to teach my students how to think of different positivity. I mean, possibilities. Instead of saying, and then you don't speak not to define, but you speak to define. Or you're not broken, you're in revision. You're not off script, you're now writing your own script. And then I teach my student, instead of saying, I'm bad at this, say, I'm early in the process. Instead of saying, I don't belong, say, I'm learning to take up space. Instead of saying, I'm not enough, Try saying something like this: I'm still becoming. And I believe that our life, our journey in finding our own identity is basically like a chemistry. So, in a world that is obsessed with authenticity, being authentic isn't about finding the one true version of yourself. But I think it's about the way how we speak to ourselves. That's the way um, how we cherish who we are, right? We don't perform an identity to fake it, but you perform to make it. You don't have to be ready before you begin. You just have to begin. Before the talk, I was very nervous, but I chose to begin. And I think I'm doing it right. Language won't always get it right, but it will always get you somewhere. So, to me, identity is like a thin strip, right? So, if you're still figuring yourself out, that's okay. If you're still switching languages, pronouns, or even a project that you are working on, that's perfect. If you are the photographer, take the shot, even if it's overexposed, even if it's incomplete, because the next frame is still developing. Thank you.